Okay, I'd like to call to order this special regular meeting of the East Lansing City Council for 6 p.m. on Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. At the opening, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman?
Here.
Councilmember Meadows? Councilmember Watson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh?
Here.
Mayor Brookover?
Here. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, would you also entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Meadows?
I will entertain such a motion. Do you make it?
I make a motion to excuse Mr. Meadows.
Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Meadows is on a long-planned European vacation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Communications from the audience. I have slips here from Mr. Rose first.
Good evening and thank you. Patrick Rose with the East Lansing Charter Amendment Committee. We're here to address whether the proposed charter amendment explanatory caption that Council wishes to vote on today to add to the ballot language is legal and should be added, or whether it contradicts the state constitution and the statute governing citizen-initiated petitions. The proposal is to state, as a caption, the proposed charter amendment below is initiated by a resident petition. The City Council believes that the proposed charter amendment contravenes existing laws of the state of Michigan, including but not limited to the Home Rule Cities Act and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. The problem with the recommended caption in the agenda report is that it's not a caption, it's not a legal caption, and it gives an explanation that's also illegal. A caption is allowed, and only a caption, when citizens present the 100-word language. That's right in the statute that the city attorney cited, 117.21, and right in that language it says, when those 100 words accurately describe the amendment, they must go on the ballot. And the city council is limited to a caption. The Court of Appeals struck a caption the Ann Arbor City Council placed illegally and in violation of the statute following the proposal that this caption follows to explain the law, saying it gave information that was likely to dissuade voters. They also indicated that it was prejudicial, biased, and it gave one side of the question. Here's what they said a caption is. Its plain and ordinary meaning is that a title or heading employed to make the ballot question plain or understandable. Well, if you need a caption, we gave you one. It's right on the petition. We called it the Chapter 2.3 of the City Charter, titled Housing Regulation. There's your caption. Applying the rule of what is a valid caption extends the Constitution's language, which I believe the city attorney is ignoring, and I want to read it. Michigan Constitution, Article 7, Section 22 states, and I quote, "Under general laws, the electors of each city and village shall have the power and authority to frame means write, adopt, and amend its charter, and to amend an existing charter of the city." So that means electors, voters, the 1,698 who signed our petition are the ones who write the language. The explanatory caption violates this rule by misleading them. Puts your thumb on the scale, makes you a player in the election, rewrites the voters, takes away their right to frame the question. First, it's incomplete and one-sided. There are two sides to the legal question. We've already sent a long letter to the city attorney stating that we don't violate the Zoning Enabling Act. We researched this carefully. A court will decide this. You are not judges and you are not a court. Your belief, maybe you believe in God, maybe you don't, maybe you believe the law is one way, maybe you don't, but a belief in the law is not a court decision. There's no court decision saying we conflict with state law. Second, the information is given by council to dissuade voters from voting yes on it. How do we know that? It's not neutral, because you say we contravene, meaning conflict, contradict, take away rights under state law. but you don't say how we protect rights under state law that the city currently denies. And all you have to do is read our amendment. If you read the last sentence, you see that we adopt the state law definition of tenant to protect citizens' rights. We conform to state law. That shows that your language is not only false, but it's misleading and it's designed to give the voters the opposite impression of what the actual language says. Why do we adopt a better definition of tenant? One that deals with tenants as people who pay rent and have a right to remain, and those are the ones subject to license, because the city, by having an overly restrictive definition of tenant, is taking away citizens' most basic right to decide which long-term guests can live in their home, a right that's protected under the state constitution, which the city is denying, we contend, and Dinolfo versus Delta Township, a 1984 Supreme Court case, lays that out. Not only do we conform to existing law, we remedy a violation of existing law, and you say the opposite. You say up is down, black is white. What does this mean? It means you're misleading voters to
You have
prejudice
30
them,
seconds remaining.
and you're doing so in a way that intrudes upon the sacred power of citizens to initiate a petition to double the size of council, take away the strong mayor's power, give it to council, change many rules. If you can change the voters' right to vote on their question, you will take away our ability to protect our most basic freedoms on everything. We asked you to vote no on the
Thank you for your
caption.
input. Dr. Rose? Okay, well, I thought your husband told us there was a specific order in your family cohort, but apparently I was wrong. Okay, Sally Newton?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Sally Newton. I live at 939 Sunset Lane. Last fall, my Glencairn neighbors and I initiated an overlay proposal. With the city's assistance, we followed all the required steps to put this into place. Along the way, I received a call from a neighbor insisting that if we did not halt the overlay, he would do everything possible, including overhauling the city charter to stop this initiative. And here we are today. The proposed amendment to the East Lansing City Charter is nothing more than an effort to dismantle city overlays in residential neighborhoods while limiting the city's ability to manage rentals safely and effectively. I thank the East Lansing City Council for their efforts to shed light on the proposed amendment by creating an explanatory caption to the ballot initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newton?
James Newton, 939 Sunset Lane. I want to thank the city for all their efforts to try to educate the public through public meetings and mailings about the issues regarding the rental requirements, exceptions to the ordinance, and in regards to overlays themselves. But even with this attempt to educate the public, many people, myself included, were told that they could not have caregivers in their home and that this would not affect overlays at all. The fact is, this is all about overlays. This is all about short-term rentals. I think that some of the people have tried to mask the issues by making this some type of social awareness issue. It is not. It is about money. I practiced landlord-tenant law for 35 years at Michigan State University. The charter is a fundamental document. Housing regulations do not belong in a city charter. No other cities that I know of have rental requirements and penalties in their charter. The fact is, East Lansing is over 60% rentals. You have to ask yourself, why are the proponents of the charter amendment seeking a charter amendment rather than trying to modify the housing ordinances within the housing sections where they belong. If the charter amendment is passed, neighborhoods and schools will be destabilized, tenants will be endangered, we'll have students living in basements and attics, rental prices will go up to keep pace with the Airbnbs, forcing the marginalized renters right out of the market. I support the additional language that is being proposed to the ballot language. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Carol Hetherington.
Hi, Carol Hetherington, 826 Sunset Lane. So, thanks for being here. Most people, are honest, and they assume that other people are honest, especially their neighbors. Well, the proposal to amend the city charter was not presented in an honest way. Those people that signed were misled. Even the way it's written, it makes it sound like East Lansing is a backward community where only people in traditional nuclear families can live together. Also talks about penalties as though East Lansing is policing people in their living rooms. I've lived in Glencairn and East Lansing for 33 years, and after grad school, after Michigan State, and never had anybody question who was in my home. Had exchange students and the such. The Roses and their team have also preyed on seniors, frightening them into thinking that they cannot have a home caregiver. We saw that in the nice gentleman that was here at the meeting that lived on terrain. He was shaking and upset because he felt that he couldn't have a caregiver. Now we have something going on the ballot that violates state law. It's hard to believe, but that seems to be true. So yes, I hope there can be some kind of caption or explanation. I hope it's very clear. When I read it, I wondered about the word contravene because it's just not something that's commonly used. But I also it would be great if it could address the fact that it invalidates the overlays that we work so hard for and we depend on so much to keep our neighborhoods safe and intact. That was the biggest lie of all that was told to the people that signed the petition. They were told that it did not affect overlays. I've heard people disgusted, that this process has come to this point when they thought they were done. And people that can afford to are talking about leaving East Lansing, moving to Meridian Township or Okemos, where these kinds of issues and the dissension that it's caused don't exist. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Grebner.
I feel like Mark Grebner, 615 Glenmore. I feel like my comments are excessively narrow because I actually wanted to talk about the idea of a caption added to the ballot. I have worked on, hundreds of ballot proposals. I'm pretty familiar with the proposals that are put on the ballot around the state. I've written many proposals myself. I'm an attorney, but I don't really practice much law. So here are my general takes. In the first place, if this were kind of in the ordinary course of business, a proposed caption would come from the city clerk and be a recommendation from the clerk. And the reason for the caption, and this is, I think, what is contemplated by state law, it would be because the typography of the ballot requires a heading at the top of the column or requires a heavy black line. And so the caption might be proposal to amend city charter or city proposals or something like that. So the question is, what would the city clerk like to add to the ballot to make it so that people know what section of the ballot they're in and what this proposal is, okay? If that has been done, I have certainly missed it, and it does not look to me like what you have before you came from the city clerk. I'm not an insider, but that certainly is not my impression of it. Instead, what you've got is frankly inflammatory, and it is advocacy. I don't believe the courts will allow it. I have never seen a proposal where a public body was added language to a proposal that came before them, where there was not in the body of the ordinance or statute to be adopted. I've never seen a case where a public body added language to argue yes or no on the adoption of the proposal, and frankly, this does. My guess is that the courts, as the Ann Arbor court did, are going to simply say, you really can't litigate, you can't be part of, not litigate, you can't campaign in the typography of the ballot. That's just not proper. And so I guess we can talk about the definition of caption. It isn't really a definitional problem. It's really the sanitization of Michigan and United States elections, that a public body simply doesn't put its finger into the system on the scale and say, this is a violation of state law. This would, do the following thing. Okay. Typically, a caption would not only come from the clerk, it would have been circulated to all the people involved in the issue in advance, because you'd want our input to say, the city clerk suggests that we need to put this on the ballot, and then it would come to us. And again, to the best of my knowledge, it was not circulated to us. No legal requirement to circulate it to us, but it would have been nice. But it is frankly just advocacy. So I guess you can proceed to do it if there are votes to do it. But it just seems to me that if this is litigated, you would be the first, in my knowledge, ever to be able to put a little ad on the ballot with the language. I just have never seen that anywhere. If that were legally possible, just think what the Republican-controlled legislature would have done with any number of proposals. Now, of course, that is not under the Home Rule Cities Act and so forth, but as a matter of public policy, I just think there's a general public policy that the ballot is a formal system which is neutral, and where an advocate can bring a petition and place a proposal on the ballot, and the place
You
to
have 30
fight
seconds
it,
remaining.
the place to fight about it, God, I never imagined I'd get to 5 minutes. The place to fight about it would either be, door to door and in the air and so forth, or possibly after it's adopted would be in the courts to say, but this is illegal. They've passed this proposal, but it is ineffective. I don't think it should be like litigated or campaigned about by the city of East Lansing. So thank you.
Thank you for your input. Ms. Fratchell, I always, and you're always trying to help me nowadays with your pronunciation, but the way you said this, I can't, did I pronounce it correctly?
It's okay.
Well, no, it's not
I'm
okay
used
to me.
It. It's Frachel.
It's Frachel, okay,
But
so it's a long A.
It's spelled very differently, so
Yeah, no,
believe me,
I
our
was trying to
family,
figure out-
our
I was-
family is very forgiving.
I was trying to figure out your hieroglyphics here, so
Thank
now
you.
I
No,
think I
thank
get
you.
it. Okay,
No.
thank you.
You know,
Go ahead.
I just want to say, I am grateful for the recent overlay discussions because they alerted me to the muddled language in our housing code. Council members back then dismissed our concerns. So we launched the committee to allow non-paying guests to stay in our homes for more than 30 days, with no changes to the city's occupancy limits. I am so grateful to the local journalists who wrote about a complex issue. The articles prompted many signers to seek us out. Some told us about citations and large fines and reasonable requests turned down. In collecting signatures, We shared actual screenshots from the city's code. This is taken right from the city's code, online, available online. Hardly misinformation. 2 questions came up over and over with a tone that can only be described as incredulous. Does the city really enforce these rules? And why does the city care about non-paying guests? East Lansing's rules are extreme. I can have a full-time domestic servant, but not my cousin. I can have visiting clergy and religious occupancy without a rental license, but not my non-paying friend of 45 years. The city's 8 exceptions to a rental license requirement include not 1, but 2 references to religion. Okay, my friend Irene can apply for online clergy ordination privileges. And by the way, that's free in Michigan and recognized by state law. East Lansing rules, scattered throughout 4 chapters, are controlling. And now the city considers adding a caption stating it believes the proposed charter amendment contravenes existing laws of the state of Michigan. Believes? Are there legal citations? I speak for myself, but I express gratitude that the City Council is working on revisions, a process that only began after we began gathering our signatures. It's acknowledgement that the concerns expressed last winter, especially about restrictions on caregiving, are warranted. Another acknowledgement that the concerns are valid. The Age-Friendly Community Committee was told earlier this month that the city has issued no citations for 2024. Maybe the records show discriminatory patterns in enforcement from previous years, or maybe the council members have seen these records. Maybe there are no problems, we don't know. So let's start fresh. I've come to agree with our treasurer that the most important part of our ballot initiative is transparency. Public records increase public awareness and compliance and would prevent the Baileys and the crowded rentals. It would help. Please make city housing records from this week on, as soon as they start renewing and beginning citations again, public and transparent. The council's plan to prejudge our ballot language will likely backfire. It's going to draw more attention. Voters, journalists, and members of the city's various commissions will scrutinize the code. Most will have questions, and they will detect the odd attempt at control. They will see through the charade and wonder about real motivations. Trust East Lansing residents, make your case. We will listen and let the voters decide. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your input. Molly Sperner.
I'll be real quick. Molly Spooner, 815 Stewart. I want to thank Mr. Meadows, who's not here. I hope he's having a great trip. But he's put in a lot of time over the summer addressing many of the questions that have been raised in the ordinances. I agree they're possibly a little confusing. I don't know that I think they're pretty common for a university town, and there are very good policy reasons for them because we are a university town. And I just want to thank the council for looking out for our neighborhoods over investors.
Thank you. Kristen Good.
Hi, Kristen Good, 609 Wallbridge Drive. Thank you for meeting tonight for the special meeting on a really important topic. My father sent me an email some weeks ago and said, hey, somebody came to my door and there's this ballot language. It sounds good. I said, Dad, he said, well, they said I wouldn't be able to have a caregiver and all of these different things. I said, you didn't sign it, did you? He said, no. And I explained what it would actually do. There's been a lot of talk about what is proper, and lying to citizens is not proper. Or I guess lying might be strong, misleading, by omitting very key information. So I'm very much in favor of the proposed clarifying ballot language or any other clarifying ballot language that explains what this language is actually going to do in this city. I think most citizens would believe that the housing is controlled pretty well by the current code. I'm talking about non-investors. I'm talking about people who own residences and live here. I think the code was developed, I've seen it over many years. I've lived in East Lansing many years, and the code was developed to address different concerns and different issues. Define non-paying tenant. Oh, she doesn't pay, she just buys groceries. Oh, well, my dad bought it, but we all live together, and we all contribute. I just paid a huge tax bill. I didn't want to live next to a co-op. I bought my house very deliberately so that I wouldn't. It becomes a very difficult definition, and I work with college students. I know they will try to get around it. They will become online clergy persons, as was suggested, which is, again, not proper and not in the spirit of what I think we all want for this city. So I would really like the language to say what this is going to do, what related to the overlays. Okay, vote for this, but this is what this is doing. Because as it is written, it is very, very unclear to anybody who is not an attorney specializing in contract law. And I don't think that's the spirit of a ballot. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Mr. Coster?
Hello. Thank you.
Hi.
Appreciate your taking me at this late time. Hard to come in on time with a 4-year-old putting on her shoes by herself. Listen, thank you guys for being here, and thank you to the neighborhood for showing up, as we always do. First of all, I want to start with gratitude and a message of excitement. Our petition for a proposed amendment got enough signatures to make its way on the ballot, and people are still getting more and more excited about it. This is something that matters to so many residents in East Lansing, and I'm pretty sure that come election day, we're going to see that it's going to vote through. You know, and it matters to people for so many reasons. There have been spoken tonight concerns about whether or not you can get a long-term caretaker to live with you if they don't meet an exact specific criteria. There have been concerns about whether you can have distant family staying with you for, maybe 30 or 40 or 50 days. And the way the law is currently written basically means that no. The answer is no. Unless you meet these very specific criteria, the answers are no. And I think the rules were written in good faith.
Excuse me just a second. I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Here it comes. Here it comes. I'm pretty sure the rules were written the way they are in good faith many years ago. But since then, we've come to recognize that there are a lot of flaws. And there are a lot of residents in East Lansing who have joined our group because they recognize that there are these serious flaws that make it really hard. For my wife and I, we're professionals. We just moved to the neighborhood a few years ago, formally. My wife grew up here. It's a wonderful neighborhood. We love it. But it doesn't really work for a lot of college professors, even though we're a college town. If you get a federal grant, if you get a grant or a job with the U.S. government, for instance, my wife just got hired by the State Department, it's a minimum 3-year term. The way the house sitting exception is set up for 2 years just doesn't work for us. So what are we going to do, leave our house empty for a year because we can't get a renter's license? So anyhow, I just want to come back with a lot of gratitude and excitement. I think the message we've brought forward, an honest message, a message that tries to really clarify the failures of our code and the ways to improve on that. They've really resonated with our neighborhood, and thank you again to everyone who signed the petition. We're just super stoked about it. And now I want to pivot for a second and speak about the caption language. I have to agree with what I believe are the experts who spoke earlier. I don't have a law degree, but my understanding from all the legal precedent I've seen before is that including this caption language would be a gross violation of the law, a gross violation of basic democratic procedure. I really encourage you all to not vote in favor of it. I'm kind of surprised that it even came up at all. I really hope it's just struck and that we can move past this and just let the residents of East Lansing speak their mind on Election Day. And for what it's worth, I think I hear from all sides. I hear lots of concerns and lots of uncertainty, and I hope that we're able to have a conversation leading up to Election Day. Thank you so much, and looking forward to Election Day. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you for your input. Dr. Rose, you're exercising your option? Okay.
Okay. Sherry Rose, and I want to talk specifically about the explanatory caption. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about citizens' ballot initiatives. And I wore my Voters Not Politicians shirt here today because that's the other citizens initiative, ballot initiative. This is the only other time I helped change a constitution, the Constitution of Michigan, which our Michigan Constitution gives us the right to do. And we were able to end gerrymandering in Michigan through that citizens ballot initiative. So I'm very happy to live in a state that gives us that right. And I wanted to just speak to the first sentence in the explanatory caption because I think it relates to this idea of what's an initiatory ballot petition of electors, people who vote in the state of Michigan. This explanatory caption, as Mark Grebner said, is engaged in advocacy, which is not the role of an explanatory caption. And you can just from the first sentence see this. The proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a resident petition. Now, when I'm reading that as a layperson, not as a lawyer, I read that as some resident went around with some petition and got some signatures. There is no resident petition. This is a citizens ballot initiative or an initiatory petition of electors, which is pretty much to me a sacred right in Michigan to have direct democracy and accomplish things that the people want. At the ballot poll, the people will decide if this is what they want or not. But clearly, by calling it and saying was initiated by a resident petition, right there in and of itself shows that this language puts the thumb on the scale because it's not even calling it what it is, which is a citizens ballot initiative. You're not writing signed by double the number required to get on, which was 5% of the electors have to sign. We got, I think, almost double that number. So I just wanted to reiterate, in a sense, what Mark said about advocacy is there's not a place for advocacy on the ballot. And I hope that we'll have some town halls where we can all discuss this in a very civil manner. I was a former social studies teacher, and I believe in civil discourse and looking at evidence and information to have civil discussions about changes. And I hope that's what we do have, but not city council having advocacy in the body of the ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your input. Anybody in the queue?
Yes, we have one caller in the queue.
Please.
Caller with the number ending 952, you're welcome to address council. Caller, you need to unmute your phone. You might try *6 to unmute your phone.
Okay.
Still muted.
Okay, we'll move ahead then to business agenda, item 3.1, consideration of adding an explanatory caption to ballot initiative to add Chapter 2.3 Housing Regulation to the East Lansing City Charter. I ask that this be put on for a special meeting and for discussion, and in order to engender such discussion, I therefore move to approve the explanatory caption as provided in the agenda item report regarding the ballot initiative to add Chapter 2.3 Housing Regulation to the East Lansing City Charter. The city clerk is further directed to do all things necessary to effectuate the placement of this explanatory caption with the ballot initiative. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Altman. Any further discussion?
I have an amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to amend the explanatory caption as provided in the agenda item report to read as follows, quote, "The proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a resident petition and not by the East Lansing City Council, period," end quote.
Okay, I will second that amendment. Discussion on the amendment first, if any. Go ahead.
Will you repeat that one more time?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to repeat it. So the entire explanatory caption under my amendment would read as follows, quote, "The proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a resident petition and not by the East Lansing City Council, period," end quote.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. Any discussion?
I have a
Go ahead.
question.
Sure.
The word resident versus citizen initiated, is there rationale? City Attorney, do you have an opinion on that? As we heard through public comment.
As I review the Home Rule Cities Act and its explanation of initiatory petitions, they are one and the same because you have to be a resident in order to sign. And so it's whatever this council feels would be a better descriptor to allow the residents to understand, or the voters rather, to understand how this was initiated.
Okay, and so the parallel term, if I might use that word, would be citizen initiative, the parallel phrase, to replace resident. Mr. Chubb?
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were asking the pro tem. I think she was referencing only modifying resident to citizen, so it would be initiated by a citizen petition.
By a citizen petition? And I thought the terminology you would use from the Home Rule Cities Act was a citizen initiated.
It could be a citizen initiative as well.
So it could be the proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a citizen-initiated petition, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Altman, what's your pleasure with regard to that suggestion?
I'm happy to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and I would second that if you modify your motion. So now for the record, would you read the currently amended motion, please?
So the motion is to amend the explanatory caption as provided in the agenda item report to read as follows. The proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a citizen-initiated petition and not by the East Lansing City Council.
End quote.
Period, end quote.
Okay. All right, any further discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Watson, go ahead, please.
Are you saying citizen singular or plural? I think it should be plural, because it is plural. It was plural, citizens.
I defer to Mr. Chubb because I think he actually used the singular. That's why
I think the singular is appropriate.
Because of the way it's referred to in the statute itself?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And so some of the language I thought about adding. And I also want to say thank you to those who spoke today. And thank you to those who have been giving us an opportunity to talk about this and to possibly fix it before we got here. We have an opportunity still now on through to address and fix the flaws that people have pointed out to us, to address concerns, to acknowledge errors, and things that might have worked in, good faith, like someone said before, but they don't work now, and it's an unfair system. And I liked the one person that came up. I wrote down some of the words she said, which was, the language is muddled. People don't understand it. Most of this sparring has been between attorneys. And so the lay person needs to show up at the booth and be able to make a decision for their community, not just our people that understand the law and want to interpret it legally. Some of the things I thought about was, I like because someone pointed out it's a citizen's ballot, and people do understand and possibly remember the citizens, not politicians. Did I say that correctly? But they, say again? Voters. Oh, sorry, voters, not never mind then. But some of the things I thought about was, do we explain, something I wrote was, this is a way that residents can organize to ask voters to support changes to the charter where they reside, or to ask voters to choose. Some of the other thoughts I had was, this proposed amendment is about who can or cannot stay in homes or apartments. I know that, that particular sentence might be more problematic. And I also wrote, while this is not a city government initiative, we respect democracy process and have sought to reveal other ways to address our community's concerns, the confusion within the sectors. I think it's very important that we acknowledge all the opportunities we had to do something and we didn't, and we still have time, and I don't want to be insultive because despite us not doing anything, they have found a way, which is fantastic.
Okay. Any further discussion? Dr. Altman?
If I could address my amendment briefly. There are two paths for a charter amendment to get on the ballot. One is for the city council to put it on the ballot, and the other is for a citizen-initiated petition. And I think there are some critical differences that provide some relevant context here. So a charter amendment that is proposed by the city council is first vetted by a municipal attorney who is retained by and responsible to the city council. That's one key difference. The other key difference is that the public has a chance to comment on the language of the amendment before the language is finalized. And we saw this about a year ago when the previous council deliberated about some charter amendments, and we heard from people who spoke at the podium with their views on that language. In addition, the people initiating the amendment are elected officials, so they can be held accountable for its effects. So that's true of a proposed amendment that reaches the ballot via the city council. These things do not apply to charter amendments proposed through an initiatory petition. So that's a critical difference. I think it's a meaningful decision that I believe helps to explain the proposed amendment.
Okay. Any other comment? Yes.
Just want to, I've been reflecting on the public comment this evening, and this issue and 8 full months being seated here on City Council. I think one uniting phrase potentially folks would agree on is our democratic republic is imperfect. I think we've seen examples of that. However, the beauty of it is there are checks and balances, and there are opportunities for folks to be engaged and create policy change. I want to reference that, because of some of the public comment tonight, I want to reiterate part of why we adopted a strategic plan was to help give direction to city operations and our city manager. Two, during that discussion, the city attorney mentioned cities or municipalities are to review their ordinances every 10 years, recognizing what has been referenced. The ordinance that cites these provisions are all over the place within our ordinance language, and it is confusing. So again, it's our responsibility to review those ordinances and proceed with cleanup changes. And the third thing I want to, and I know it was referenced during public comment, but I do, since, our city manager has come into place and this council has been seated, I like to reference there's been a really aggressive approach to city communications on issues, recognizing there is misinformation out there and the need to be as clear as possible in educating, and this is one example, right? We have more work to do, and I want to commend staff in being aggressive in that end. This is all to say that I do want to commend, too, the work group that is currently working on language, we recognize that this is one area that we want to support some cleanup. I plan on supporting this language as proposed in our vote here momentarily, and I felt, as I had talked to some residents prior to this evening, that it would be unjust if we were advised that there could be contradictions with state statute with this ballot language without saying something to the community. So we are having a conversation. We've taken into consideration much of what was mentioned in public comment today, and I believe what is on the table currently does a good job in addressing some of those concerns. So that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
So if no one is on board with adding additional things, like I suggested, I think that it should just say, this is a citizen's petition. What was the, please again, what was the first part of what you said?
The caption would read, the proposed charter amendment below was initiated by a citizen-initiated petition and not by the East Lansing City Council. And that's all the caption would say.
Yeah, I would just make a period after citizens initiated petition. And what do we want the person to draw from by saying and not? Because they can draw just from hearing alone that this is a resident petition, that it's a resident's petition. And I even think making those additional words kind of sends a message. So I'm asking for an amendment.
Well, okay. Do you wish to make an amendment to the amended motion?
Yep.
Okay, what's your amendment?
That it just says, this is the proposed charter amendment was initiated by resident petition.
Okay, is there a second to that proposed amendment? Seeing no second, the proposed amendment fails. So we move to the main amendment. And let me just say this, I will support this amendment. Having reviewed the ballot initiative, the case law, the main motion, the amended motion, the written and oral comments of many concerned and valued citizens, I believe the amended motion is a fair explanation to the voters of the genesis of the ballot proposition. So I would ask for a roll call vote then, please, on the amended, on the amendment.
The motion to amend the underlying
Correct.
motion.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows, Councilmember Watson,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh,
Yes.
Mayor Brookover.
Yes. Okay, then we move to the main motion as now amended. Any further discussion beyond what we've already had?
Oh, yeah, may as well. So what are we voting on now?
So we're,
I thought that was what we just voted on.
well, in a way we did, but now we have to vote on the original main motion as amended. We voted to approve
To
that
accept
amendment.
his amendment
And now
and
it
not-
goes
I get it.
back to the main
Yeah.
motion as amended.
Yeah, just want to say, we were even asked for an attorney opinion multiple times on this matter. And so I hope that we do better now on through election and then on to address issues that have been brought up to us that make sense to make some changes on. It's disappointing to flip the switch on people that want a change that that can be positive or that warrants and has warranted a discussion in our community so people can just understand who can walk through their doors and who cannot, and abide by the law if they want to. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote then on the main motion, please?
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows, Councilmember Watson,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh,
Yes.
Mayor Brookover.
Yes. All right. The only other item we have on the agenda is the possibility of a closed session. I see no reason for a closed session unless somebody feels there's a reason for it. So I would move then, if somebody can make a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn our city council meeting this evening.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for coming.